How is it that wars of aggression are carried out in the name of defense, or that killing babies and murdering the elderly is done in the name of healthcare, or brainwashing the next generation in the name of education? It is because evil is incapable of building up anything good. All they can do is take what is already good and corrupt that. And this is important for us to understand what is happening in the church and what is happening with the mass. See, if you ask people what are the most important things for society, they might say defense, healthcare, education, law and order, the family, and some will say the worship of God. And they're right. These are the highest natural and supernatural goods for a society. And it's precisely because they're good that the evil have to infiltrate them and appropriate them in order to carry out their plans. Because if they were honest about what they were doing, everybody would resist them. That's perhaps why God is allowing so many other institutions around us to fall apart so that we can face up to what is happening in the church. Or is there any greater threat to world stability today than the defense industry? Are there any companies that cause more sickness than pharmaceutical businesses? Or think how much harm has been done in the last 2 or 3 years in the name of healthcare. It was the church who gave the world hospitals, and now they're used for places to get us dependent on drugs or even to kill. It was the church who gave the world universities as places to search for the truth. Now they're places to enslave young people with debt, get them early on that conveyor belt, to separate them from God with this godless environment, debauched, and to fill their minds with wokeism. And they're young and idealistic and they want something great, but you take away the truth and substitute a false cause, and that attracts idealistic youth. It was the church that gave the world the broad school system, beginning with the cathedral schools under Charlemagne. They were places to learn the liberal arts, to be surrounded by beauty and truth, and now schools are used to bring in drag queens. They're remodeling families to become a dangerous place for children, which ought to be the most natural and best place, and yet now they're deliberately depriving newborns of having a mother and father. Think of governments. They are deliberately causing chaos, dividing the societies under them in order to have control. Law and order is a proper natural good, but see the police forces today turning into paramilitaries. They come out with their helmets so their faces are covered. You can't see their face. They're dehumanized, covered in body armor, setting police horses against disabled people in Canada, or dogs set upon peaceful protesters in the Netherlands. Secret services who now surveil us all as if we're all suspect enemies of the state. Taxation is naturally needful, but at 10 or maybe 20%. More than this, it is organized theft. And what about the media? It used to be thought that the purpose of newspapers or the news was to keep you informed of what is happening. Truly now, the purpose of the media is to keep you distracted. It's to misinform you so that we can't see what's actually happening before our eyes. Now, as we think how all this relates to the church, it's very important to see the solution is not to throw away what is good, not to cease healthcare or education or the family. Of course not, but we need to live these as true as we can so that the enemies can't take them over. And so it is with the church and worship, because none of these institutions around us changed overnight. It has to be done gradually. And so it is with the Mass. The new Mass, when it was introduced, was never the end goal. It was always meant as a transition to something completely different. But you have to have a generation who no longer remember the old before you can bring in the next changes. This is what happened in the English Reformation. Thomas Cranmer couldn't do everything at once. He made some disastrous changes, and people were put under fear of fines or of imprisonment or even death so that they would go along with it. And after a generation, his successors could introduce more and more radical changes. This is what's happening to our worship. And now we've had a generation who hardly know the old Mass, and those who serve the prince of this world want to move it on to the next step. Ultimately, it's towards ecumenical and then interfaith worship and then one world religion to serve who will be the Antichrist. Most people involved in this don't realize where it's all going. They cooperate because they think it's for the good. And that's precisely the point about murder being done in the name of healthcare or war being prosecuted in the name of defense. or children being endangered in the name of family. You take something good, the best, the worship of God, and say that's what you're doing, but you turn it round to become the worship of man. Here we might understand then how the synod on synodality and traditionis custodes fit together. They're two sides of one coin. For in order to introduce the false, you need to take away the true. And if traditionalists had not hung on to the venerable liturgy, then it would be much easier to move on to the next phase. In order for the synod to achieve its goals, it's really necessary to crush tradition. Yet we're never going to let that happen. These people are going up against God. That's insane. The best thing we can do for them as well, even for our enemies as well as our neighbor, is to hang on to Christ, hang on to what is true. The tragedy in the 70s and 80s was when many people saw the mass change, they stopped coming altogether. They were devastated. And they think, what's this new thing? I don't know what this is. This is not the proper worship of God. I'm not coming. And I think the wicked want us to do that as well with schools, with media, with the police forces, just to give up on them all and surrender, to be crushed. Let's not give up. We've no reason to. God is immense and immensely good. He won't be beat. We stick with him, and then all these other things can be rescued. If the mass were to go down, then everything's over. It will not go down. And if you're part of it, then you're keeping the ship afloat for everyone. All those on board of it, and all those who are overboard, but who we can hope to rescue. You know, everything's being turned on its head. So, for example, tolerance. What's done now in the name of tolerance is to cancel people. It's the opposite of what it says. Or people have a natural instinct to want to help a refugee or those fleeing persecution. Moses spoke of this. Jesus spoke of this. It's a proper and right thing to do. And yet that very good instinct, that charity for those in need, is turned on its head in order to cause hatred through mass immigration, which is unnatural and bad for everybody. Always they take what is good and use it to introduce something for their own evil, selfish purpose. That's what's happening with the mass. And if we're ignorant of the past, we have no chance for the future. The wicked, their empire will collapse in an hour. And the mass and the church and the faithful will still be standing. God bless you all.